My name is Emily and I'm 32 years old. A few months ago, I believed I had a perfect life. Married to Jason, a renowned and successful lawyer, I led a comfortable and seemingly happy existence. We had a beautiful house, frequented the best restaurants, and took international trips regularly. From the outside, we were the perfect couple that everyone envied. But the truth is, deep down, I felt empty, as if something was missing. It was during a vacation trip to a small coastal town that my life changed completely. Jason, as always, was busy with work, even while on vacation. He spent hours on the phone or laptop, solving cases and attending to clients. I felt lonely, walking along the beach while watching other couples enjoying time together. On a particularly hot afternoon, I decided to go into the sea to cool off. The waves were a little stronger than normal, but I didn't pay much attention. I swam for a few minutes, feeling the salt water envelop my body, when suddenly a stronger wave caught me off guard. I was dragged to the bottom and, for a moment, felt panic. I struggled to return to the surface, but the current was stronger than me. It was then that I felt a pair of strong arms wrapping around me, pulling me back to safety. When I finally managed to breathe and open my eyes, I saw the face of my savior. He was a young man, probably my age, with deep blue eyes like the sea and dark hair tousled by the wind and water. "Are you okay?" he asked, his deep voice full of concern. I coughed a little, expelling the water I had swallowed, and nodded. "Yes, I am. Thank you for saving me." He smiled, a warm smile that made my heart skip a beat. "It was nothing. I'm Ethan, a local fisherman. I know these waters well and saw that you were in trouble." I introduced myself and thanked him again. Ethan insisted on accompanying me to the sand, ensuring that I was really okay. As we walked, we talked a little. I discovered that he had lived in the town all his life, knew every corner of the beach, and loved the sea more than anything else in the world. There was something about Ethan that intrigued me. Maybe it was his simplicity, so different from the sophisticated world I was used to. Or maybe it was the way his eyes shone when he talked about the ocean. Whatever it was, I found myself wanting to know more about him. In the days that followed, I invented excuses to go to the beach alone. Jason barely noticed my absence, always busy with his calls and emails. I met Ethan almost every day, and our conversations became longer and deeper. Ethan showed me a side of life that I had forgotten existed. He took me on boat rides at sunset, taught me how to fish, and introduced me to hidden places in the town that tourists never knew about. With him, I felt alive, desired, and appreciated in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. One night, as we walked along the beach under the moonlight, Ethan suddenly stopped and turned to me. His eyes shone with an intensity that took my breath away. "Emily," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I know you're married and I probably shouldn't say this, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. I've fallen in love with you." My heart raced. I knew I was falling in love with him too, but hearing those words out loud made everything too real. I remained silent for a moment, struggling against the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "Ethan, I began, but he gently interrupted me. "You don't need to say anything now. I just needed you to know. I don't expect anything from you, but I want you to know that, to me, you're the most amazing woman I've ever met." That night, I returned to the hotel in a state of total confusion. Jason was sleeping when I arrived, his laptop still open next to the bed. I looked at him and, for the first time, wondered if what we had was really love or just a comfortable partnership. The following days were torture. I was torn between the guilt of betraying Jason, even if only emotionally up to that point, and the intoxicating emotion I felt when I was with Ethan. Each of his smiles, each casual touch, sent shivers down my spine. It was on a particularly hot afternoon that we crossed the line. We were in a small hidden cove, a secret place that Ethan had shown me. The waves gently lapped against the rocks and the sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink. Ethan was teaching me how to identify different types of shells when our eyes met. The world seemed to stop. Before I realized what was happening, his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, almost hesitant, but soon transformed into something deeper, more passionate. When we separated, breathless, I knew there was no turning back. I had crossed a line that I could never undo. "Sorry," Ethan whispered, but his eyes said otherwise. He wasn't sorry, and to be honest, neither was I. "Don't apologize," I replied, pulling him in for another kiss. From that moment on, our relationship became physical as well as emotional. We met whenever we could, savoring every stolen moment. Every touch, every kiss, every intimate moment was like an explosion of sensations. With Ethan, I felt desired, appreciated, alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. The guilt was still there, of course. Every time I returned to the hotel and saw Jason, I felt as if I was carrying an enormous weight. But the emotion and passion I felt with Ethan were stronger. It was as if I had discovered a part of myself that had been dormant for years. The days passed and our passion only grew. Ethan showed me a world I didn't even know existed. He took me swimming with dolphins at dawn, taught me to recognize constellations in the night sky, and made me feel more connected to nature than I ever had been. One night, as we lay on the sand looking at the stars, Ethan turned to me with a serious expression. "Emily, I know this is crazy, but what if you stayed? What if we left everything behind and started a new life together?" My heart leapt. The idea was both terrifying and exciting. Leaving my comfortable life, my marriage, everything I knew, for love. It was madness. But at the same time, I had never felt so alive, so truly happy as in the last few weeks with Ethan. I don't know, Ethan, I answered honestly. It's a very big decision. He nodded, understanding. I know. I'm not asking for an answer now. I just want you to know that, if you decide to stay, I'll be here. Ready to build a life with you. In the days that followed, that conversation wouldn't leave my head. I observed Jason, so absorbed in his work, so distant from me, and wondered if we had ever really been happy or if we were just comfortable in the routine we had created. The date of our departure was approaching and I still hadn't made a decision. Part of me wanted to stay with Ethan, to live this intense passion and discover where it would lead us. Another part was terrified at the idea of leaving everything behind, of disappointing my family and friends, of giving up the security that my life with Jason provided. On the eve of our departure, I received a message from Ethan. "Tomorrow you're leaving. I need to know your answer. Meet me on the beach at midnight if you decide to stay. If you don't come, I'll understand and wish you all the happiness in the world." I spent the day in agony, weighing the pros and cons, trying to imagine what my life would be like if I stayed and what it would be like if I left. Jason noticed my restlessness, but attributed it to the stress of the end of the vacation. When night came, I told Jason I was going for one last walk on the beach to say goodbye to the place. He barely looked up from his laptop, murmuring a distracted "okay." I walked along the sand, my heart pounding in my chest. The full moon illuminated the ocean, creating a silver path over the waters. In the distance, I saw Ethan's silhouette. He was standing, looking at the sea, hands in his pockets. He seemed the embodiment of everything I desired: freedom, passion, adventure. As I approached, he turned. His eyes lit up when he saw me, a wide smile forming on his face. "You came," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I came," I replied, feeling as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Ethan pulled me into a tight hug, and at that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that. There would be consequences, broken hearts, disappointments. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. We spent hours on the beach, making plans, dreaming about our future together. Ethan talked about moving to a larger coastal city, where he could work as a tour guide and I could use my marketing skills to help small local businesses. We talked about traveling, about exploring the world together, about building a life based on passion and authenticity. When the sun began to rise, I knew it was time to face reality. I needed to go back to the hotel, confront Jason, and close a chapter of my life to start another. "I'll go with you," Ethan offered, but I shook my head. "No, this is something I need to do alone. Meet me here in 2 hours. I'll be ready to leave then." He nodded, understanding, and gave me one last kiss before I left. The walk back to the hotel was the longest of my life. Each step seemed heavy, laden with the weight of what I was about to do. When I entered the room, Jason was already awake, packing. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice a mixture of concern and irritation. "I was worried when I woke up and you weren't here." I took a deep breath, gathering all the courage I could. "Jason, we need to talk." He must have noticed something in my voice, because he stopped what he was doing and sat on the bed, looking at me attentively. "What's going on, Emily?" The words came out like a torrent. I told him everything. About how I had felt lonely and neglected for years, about how I met Ethan, about how I fell in love. I talked about the intensity of my feelings, about how I felt alive for the first time in a long time. Jason listened in silence, his face a mask of shock and pain. When I finished, there was a long moment of silence. You're leaving me?" he finally asked, his voice breaking. I nodded, tears freely running down my face. "I'm sorry, Jason. I really am. But I can't live a lie anymore. I can't keep pretending I'm happy when I'm not." What followed was a painful and emotionally exhausting conversation. Jason oscillated between anger, sadness, and pleading. He promised to change, said we could do couples therapy, that he would do anything to save our marriage. For a moment, I almost wavered. The idea of hurting someone who had been such an important part of my life for so long was almost unbearable. But then I remembered how I felt with Ethan. The joy, the passion, the feeling of being truly alive. And I knew I couldn't go back. "I'm sorry, Jason," I finally said. "But my decision is made. I hope that one day you can forgive me and understand that I'm doing this not just for me, but for both of us. You deserve someone who loves you completely, and I need to be true to myself." The following hours were a blur of tears, arguments, and packing. Jason oscillated between trying to convince me to stay and accusing me of destroying our life together. It was painful, but I remained firm in my decision. When I finally left the hotel, carrying only a suitcase with the essentials, I felt exhausted, but strangely light. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Ethan was waiting for me on the beach, as promised. When he saw me, his face lit up with a smile that made my heart race. "You really came," he said, as if he still couldn't believe it. "I came," I replied, taking his hand. "I'm ready for our new life together." Ethan pulled me into a tight hug, and at that moment, all the doubts and fears I might have had dissipated. I knew I was making the right choice, as difficult and scary as it was. We left that same morning, taking a bus to a larger coastal city, where Ethan had some contacts. During the trip, as I watched the landscape pass by the window, I reflected on everything I was leaving behind. My comfortable life, my friends, my family. I knew that many wouldn't understand my decision, that I would be judged and criticized. But for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The first weeks in our new city were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges. We found a small apartment to rent, nothing compared to the luxurious house I shared with Jason, but it was ours. Ethan got a job as a tour guide, taking visitors on boat trips and diving excursions. I, on the other hand, had to start from scratch. I used my savings to open a small digital marketing agency, focused on helping local businesses improve their online presence. It was challenging at first, but also incredibly rewarding. For the first time, I was using my creativity and skills for something I really cared about, not just to earn a fat salary in a big company. Of course, it wasn't all roses. There were days when I woke up wondering if I had done the right thing. Days when the reality of our tight financial situation hit me hard. Days when I missed the comfort and security of my previous life. But then, Ethan would come home, with that smile that lit up his whole face, talking excitedly about his day, about the tourists he had met, about some new wonder he had discovered in the ocean. And I remembered why I had chosen this life. Our relationship also faced challenges. We went from the overwhelming passion of the beginning to the reality of day-to-day life. We had our first fights, our first disappointments with each other. But each obstacle we overcame together only strengthened our bond. 6 months after our move, I received an email from Jason. My heart raced when I saw his name in my inbox. For a moment, I hesitated to open it, fearing what it might contain. When I finally gathered the courage, I was surprised by the content. Jason wrote that, after much reflection and therapy, he had come to the conclusion that our marriage really hadn't been working for a long time. He admitted that he had lost himself in his work, neglecting our relationship and my feelings. Although he was still hurt by the way things ended, he wished me happiness in my new life. That email was like the closing of a chapter. I felt a mix of relief and gratitude. Relief to know that Jason was moving on, and gratitude that we had the opportunity to have a more positive closure. As the months passed, our life together settled into a comfortable routine, but never monotonous. Ethan taught me to see beauty in small things, in the sunrise over the ocean, in the taste of a freshly caught fish, in the feeling of sand between my toes. I, on the other hand, encouraged him to dream bigger, to expand his horizons beyond the small town where he had grown up. A year after our move, we decided to fulfill a dream we had since the beginning, to travel along the coast in a small sailboat. We saved for months, working overtime and living even more frugally. Finally, we managed to buy a used boat, small but in good condition. We spent weeks learning to sail together, laughing at our mistakes and celebrating each small progress. When we finally set sail for our great adventure, I felt a mixture of excitement and fear that reminded me of that night on the beach, when I decided to leave everything behind for Ethan. Our journey took us to incredible places. We explored small deserted islands, swam in crystal-clear waters with sea turtles, slept under the stars on moonless nights. We met fascinating people at every port we stopped at, listening to their stories and sharing ours. It was during this trip that I realized I had found something I never knew I was looking for, a sense of purpose and belonging. With Ethan, I wasn't just a successful lawyer's wife or a marketing executive. I was simply Emily, a woman in search of adventure and meaning. Of course, not all moments were perfect. There were frightening storms that made us question our sanity for being in such a small boat in the middle of the ocean. There were days of boredom when we were stuck in a port waiting for the weather to improve. There were heated discussions about navigation decisions and task distribution. But each challenge we faced together only strengthened our connection. We learned to trust each other in a way I had never experienced before. Ethan trusted me to navigate while he rested, and I trusted him to keep us safe during storms. After 6 months at sea, we decided to return to solid ground. We chose a different coastal city to start over, one that combined the tranquility of seaside life with professional opportunities for both of us. Ethan decided to open his own ecotourism company, using the knowledge he had acquired over the years as a fisherman and guide. I, in turn, expanded my marketing agency, focusing on helping local businesses promote sustainable tourism. We worked hard, but always found time to enjoy the life we had chosen. We had picnics on the beach, swam at sunset, explored nature trails on weekends. Our home, though simple, was always full of laughter and love. 3 years after that fateful vacation trip that changed my life, I received an unexpected invitation. It was for Jason's wedding. For a moment, I was shocked. Not because he was moving on, I genuinely hoped he would find happiness, but because he had thought to invite me. I showed the invitation to Ethan, uncertain about how he would react. To my surprise, he smiled and said, "I think we should go. It would be a good opportunity for you to have complete closure with that part of your life." After much reflection, we decided to accept the invitation. Going back to my hometown, seeing old friends and family, facing Jason and his new fiancée, all of this made me nervous. But Ethan was by my side every step of the way, giving me strength when I thought I couldn't do it. The wedding was a surreal experience. Seeing Jason happy with someone else initially caused a pang of, not jealousy, but perhaps nostalgia for what could have been. But then I looked at Ethan, saw the love in his eyes, and knew I had made the right choice. I briefly spoke with Jason during the reception. It was a bittersweet moment, full of shared memories and the awareness of how much our lives had changed. But there was no more hurt or regret. Just a sincere wish for happiness for each other. When we returned to our seaside home, I felt as if a cycle had been completed. I had faced my past and come out stronger. I looked at Ethan, at the life we had built together, and felt deeply grateful for having had the courage to follow my heart. Today, 5 years after that trip that changed everything, I can say with certainty that I don't regret my decision. Life with Ethan isn't perfect, no life is. We have our ups and downs, our arguments and reconciliations. But it's an authentic life, full of love, adventure, and personal growth. Sometimes, when I'm sitting on the porch of our house, watching the sunset over the ocean, I think about the Emily of 5 years ago. The woman who believed she had a perfect life, but who deep down felt empty and lost. I wish I could tell her that everything would be okay. That sometimes you need to have courage to follow your heart, even when it seems crazy. Ethan and I still have many dreams and plans for the future. We talk about having children, about traveling more, about expanding our businesses. But the most important thing is that, no matter what the future holds for us, we know we'll face it together. My journey has taught me that true love isn't just about romance and passion. It's about partnership, mutual growth, and the courage to be authentic. It's about finding someone who inspires you to be the best version of yourself. If there's one lesson I'd like to share with anyone reading my story, it's this: it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to be true to yourself and seek true happiness. The path may be scary and uncertain, but the journey is worth it. I look at Ethan now, tinkering with our small garden while humming a song. His face is a little more wrinkled than when we met, marked by the sun and sea wind. But his eyes still shine with the same intensity, and his smile still makes my heart race. And I know, with all certainty, that I would do it all again. Every moment of doubt, every tear shed, every obstacle overcome, it was all worth it to get where I am today. Happy, fulfilled, and truly loved. My love story may have started with a betrayal, but it turned into something much deeper and more meaningful. It's a story of courage, self-discovery, and true love. And although it caused pain at the beginning, I believe that in the end, everyone involved found their way to happiness. Sometimes, when I'm swimming in the ocean with Ethan, or walking hand in hand on the beach, or simply sharing a coffee on the porch in the morning, I feel a wave of gratitude so intense it almost makes me cry. Gratitude for having had the courage to change my life, gratitude for Ethan and his unconditional love, gratitude for the life we've built together. And if you're reading this and find yourself at a similar crossroads, questioning whether you should follow your heart or stay on the safe and familiar path, I say, be brave. Be honest with yourself and with others. Life is too short to live less than fully. Of course, not all stories will have the same happy ending as mine. Not all passions are meant to last. But I firmly believe that being true to oneself and seeking authentic happiness is always the right path, no matter where it may lead. My story is still being written. Ethan and I have many chapters ahead, many adventures to live, many challenges to overcome. But one thing is certain, we'll face it all together, with love, respect, and the certainty that we choose each other every day. And in the end, isn't that what true love is all about? Not just the big romantic gestures or the moments of intense passion, but the daily choice to be by someone's side, to grow together, to face the storms and celebrate the sunny days. As the sun sets on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, I feel Ethan's arms wrapping around me from behind. He softly kisses my neck and whispers, "What are you thinking about?" I smile, turning to face him. About how happy I am. About how grateful I am for everything we've been through to get here. He smiles back, that smile that still makes my heart melt. Me too, my love. Every day with you is an adventure. And as we kiss, with the sound of waves in the background and the smell of the sea in the air, I know I'm exactly where I should be. This is my love story, of betrayal transformed into redemption, of courage rewarded with true happiness. And no matter what the future holds for us, I know we'll face it together, with love, courage, and the certainty that we chose the right path. Because sometimes, the happy ending isn't what we initially imagined, but something much better that we discover along the way.